27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens, known in the paperwork as CS1. What Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation. So Tammy Cowens signed up to be a DEA informant to give Demetrius Flannery a time cut, plain and simple.
You got power, you can't be a snitch. Meech a snitch. Everybody know Meech a snitch. Right? Y'all run around praise. We don't do that. Not in St. Louis, but we know he's a snitch. We believe Cuff.
He was convicted of running a huge criminal enterprise stretching from Atlanta to Detroit and several other states. And this week, after serving nearly 20 years in prison for racketeering, drug dealing, and running a criminal enterprise, he is out of prison.
Street codes are street codes, but when there's any insinuation that a kingpin like Big Meech got caught breaking them, especially snitching, it is another level of serious.
Speaking of prison, a whole bunch of people just got out. Big Meech is the most prominent one out of that bunch. He took a 30-year plea deal for running a continuing criminal enterprise, CCE. There was allegations by the family of a St. Louis kingpin named Dion Cuffy Gatlin. His family is saying that Meech cooperated against him and so forth.
We all know Big Meech got locked up for some crazy stuff back in 2005, right? But just a couple of months ago, out of nowhere, he walked out a free man.
He was convicted of running a huge criminal enterprise stretching from Atlanta to Detroit and several other states. And this week, after serving nearly 20 years in prison for racketeering, drug dealing, and running a criminal enterprise.
However, the internet has been going absolutely wild ever since. Think about it. This guy was supposed to serve 30 years but got out after just 15. Something's not adding up. Fans are talking, rumors are flying, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. Big Meech isn't just some random dude in hip-hop history. He was connected to some of the biggest and most powerful names in the game,
including some of the most dangerous crime lords on the planet. Meet Big Meech, founder and leader of the Black Mafia family, aka BMF, which at one point.
And now that he's out, 50 Cent jumped right into the mix, stirring things up like only he can. The big problem? The first person Meech linked up with after getting out was Rick Ross, and if you know hip-hop, you know 50 and Ross have been beefing forever. So of course, 50 went in, clowning Meech non-stop for hanging with Ross. But that wasn't even the worst part. He straight up accused Meech and a lady called Tammy of working with a federal informant to get out early. In an Instagram post, 50 didn't hold back, saying, the biggest mistake he ever made was not sustaining his relationship with Tammy Cowan. Her docu reveals the truth. And he didn't stop there. He even posted, "You told Tammy to tell B." Then he dropped an audio clip of Tammy herself saying, "Yeah, let's tell the truth."
Great, it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
It really is, but I agree. So, you know.
Now, Tammy Cowan isn't just some random name in all this. She's been tied to Meech's business for years. She's a co-producer on the BMF TV show and has owned BMF Entertainment since 2008. Word is Meech sold his life rights to Tammy, meaning she had inside knowledge of everything about his life. At some point, 50 approached Tammy about turning Meech's story into a project and she was on board. Everything seemed cool at first, with Meech's own son starring as him in the show. But somewhere along the way, things went sideways between Meech and Tammy. And that's when she sold his life rights to 50, which is when the real drama started.
50 Cent said Rick Ross? Rick Ross said, oh, 50 Cent. I wouldn't do that, because in fact, I own.
That's also when people started throwing around accusations of third-party snitching, basically getting someone close to you to snitch on your behalf so your name stays clean. And in this case, people believe that's exactly what Meech did with Tammy.
But I'm in here with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech. What Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation. So Tammy Cowan signed up to...
Some even said he might have used his life rights as compensation for it. And 50 wasn't the only one saying Meech folded. 607 Unc claimed that a guy named Cuffy gave Meech $1 million, and he still snitched. Then there was Blue Da Vinci, who straight up said that Meech snitched through Tammy. In an interview with Cam Capone, he basically summed up everything people had been whispering about.
All right, let me explain to you what this lady did, man. She went to the police. I told y'all we finna run the play, and they gave her the phones or whatever to hook up the wiretap. They gave her the hot phones, the wiretap. That's how she did it.
Wild, right? But Meech wasn't about to let his name get dragged like that. He clapped back hard, saying, "I never folded, never told, never will. Death before dishonor always."
I wasn't gonna address this, because I'm not trying to let nobody trick me off the streets.
50 wasn't buying it though. He kept trolling, saying Meech sounded like he was reading from a script, like he had a teleprompter in front of him. 50 publicly revealed that Tammy sold Meech's life rights to him. Yeah, this whole thing was getting real messy. Then things got even crazier when Meech and Rick Ross planned a massive welcome back concert with Ross set to perform his hit BMF, Live for Meech. But just hours before the show, the whole thing got canceled out of nowhere. No reason, no explanation. Fans immediately started pointing fingers at 50. Of course, 50 denied it, but not without getting the last laugh. He posted, "I had nothing to do with this. Please stop calling my phone. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm stronger than you think I am." And just when it seemed like things might die down, 50 kept the beef alive. Because let's be real, if there's one thing we all know about him, it's that he never lets a grudge go. And this time, he dragged Big Meech's son, Lil Meech, into it. Now here's where it gets even messier. While Big Meech was locked up, 50 actually looked out for Lil Meech, even making sure he stayed in school. He was like a father figure to him.
Man, it's still a surreal moment to me. When I first met 50, I was still trying to find myself. One day he's like, man, they looking at Terrence Howard and Nipsey Hussle, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to play me,
But when all this drama started, Lil Meech stayed quiet. And then 50 noticed Lil Meech laughed at one of his dad's posts about him. And if you know 50 Cent, you already know that was all he needed to go off. So 50 didn't waste any time. He jumped on Instagram and posted a message from Lil Meech, basically calling him out. And that's when Boozy Badazz stepped in. Boozy wasn't feeling the way 50 handled things at all. I didn't like his response, but it seems like he got genuine love for 50 in his response. Boozy said about Meech's text where he told 50, "I can't believe this, man. You act like I'm your enemy. I've only ever shown you love and loyalty."
Meech, I ain't like his response. It seemed like he got a genuine kind of love for 50.
But Boozy, he wasn't having any of it. He straight up said, "My response would be Ninja F you. That's my daddy. F you, Ninja. Let's go to war."
That's my daddy. You. Go to war. You.
And of course, 50 wasn't about to let that slide. He fired back with a now deleted IG clip from Boozy's interview, writing, "I did more for Mimi than anyone in his life, Boozy. That's why he responded like that. If he gets locked up, I'm the first person he calls. I bailed him out every time. When I saw him laughing at his pop's post, I said, oh he a snake too. He belonged with him." But Boozy wasn't the only one who had a problem with Lil Meech's response. The game also jumped in, basically saying Meech should have come harder for his pops. "Hey Lil Meech, you supposed to be like F you. This is BMF and I'm standing with my pops." Now, if you know hip-hop beef history, then you know 50, and the game had one of the wildest feuds ever. So let's take a little trip down memory lane. Back in November 2004, 50 and Game dropped How We Do, a track that helped put Game on the map.
It's how we do. We make a move at the pool while we up in the club. This is...
The song was blowing up, giving him some serious mainstream buzz. But behind the scenes, tension was already building. See, 50 was working on his own album, The Massacre, originally titled St. Valentine's Day Massacre because he planned to drop it on February 14th, 2005. But that album ended up getting pushed back. And the reason? Game wanted to drop his album first. Now, 50 wasn't happy about that, but he let it slide. And at first, things seemed cool. But Game, he started feeling himself. A lot. On his track, Put You on the Game, he rapped, "I'm going 3 times platinum, dog. How do I stop? I'm hot." The problem, his album hadn't even dropped yet. Then on another track featuring Eminem, he said, "I'ma do shady numbers. I'm riding my own D."
I'ma do numbers. I'm riding my own.
So yeah, Game was on a whole different level of confidence. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it definitely rubbed 50 the wrong way, especially since 50 was the hottest artist at the time. The Massacre went 1.14 million copies in its first week, so it wasn't like 50 was just gonna let Game act like he was running things. And that was just the beginning of the drama. Game started beefing with a whole list of people. Rappers, DJs, even Jay-Z. And that last one, yeah, 50 was not happy about that at all. At the time, 50 didn't want problems with Jay-Z, because let's be real, Jay could have easily crushed Game's career before it even took off. So when Game started dissing Jay, 50 had to step in and clean up the mess. He literally had to call Jay and be like, "Yo, my bad, he didn't mean it."
He called me actually, because he had said something about Jay-Z. He said he could suck his, and he called me and I was like, yo, let me talk to him, because it was so early that Jay could have kind of put his lights out.
But Game kept wilding out. He dissed a DJ in North Carolina before his album even dropped, which meant he was already getting banned in places before his career really took off. Even with all that drama, 50 still kept him in G-Unit. He was holding everything together, patching up Game's reckless moves left and right. But then, Game went overseas for his album promo tour, and for some reason started dissing Jay-Z again just a week after his album dropped. When he came back to the US, that's when the real problem started. Game suddenly stopped giving 50 any credit for helping him on the album. Every interview, he'd only talk about Dr. Dre, acting like 50 had nothing to do with his success.
Who are some of the key people, man, that put you where you are right now?
Oh, man, Dr. Dre, man.
Right.
And that's when everything really fell apart, so things just kept getting worse. Game wasn't rocking G-Unit gear anymore, and on top of that, he made it clear he had no beef with dudes like Jadakiss, Fat Joe, and Cameron, even though 50 was actively beefing with them. At the time, 50 had just dropped Piggy Bank, a diss track aimed at Fat Joe and Jadakiss. Then MTV asked Game about it, and his response, basically, that's between them. I got no problems with those guys.
I'm not getting into that.
You're not gonna get into that?
No. Jadakiss is a good friend of mine.
That didn't sit right with 50 at all. He was like, I just gave this guy his first 3 singles and now he's acting like he's not even part of G-Unit. But if you really look at what was happening, something changed after Game got back from his overseas tour. Suddenly, he didn't want to be involved in 50's beefs anymore, and a lot of people believe that Jimmy Henchman, Game's manager at the time, who already had personal issues with 50, was the one whispering in his ear. Henchman saw an opportunity. He probably told Game, you don't need 50, you can be bigger than him if you go against him. And let's be real, Game was still young and Henchman was a lot older, so it wouldn't have been hard to influence him. If you've ever watched the Beef 3 DVD, you'd even hear Henchman himself saying that Game was never meant to be a G-Unit soldier. He was supposed to be on 50's level or even bigger.
50's here, and Game can be anywhere in between that and probably even bigger than that.
So it's not a stretch to believe that Henchman manipulated Game into turning on 50, thinking it would help his career. The logic was simple. If Game went against 50 and won, he'd sell even more records and become an even bigger artist. Then came the moment everyone started realizing things were off. Game and 50 had to shoot the Hate It or Love It video together, which was already awkward. There were rumors of serious tension on set. In the final cut, you can even see 50 sitting in the back seat instead of the front with Game. That video premiered on TRL on February 21st, 2005, and after that, it was obvious to the public that something was wrong. A week later, 50 was on his promo run for the and interviewers kept asking him, are you and Game still cool? By that time, 50 had seen all of Game's interviews where he refused to give him credit, said he was cool with Nas, Jadakiss, and Fat Joe, and basically made it clear he wasn't riding with G-Unit anymore. So when 50 stopped by Power 105 for an interview, he finally made it official. Game is no longer with G-Unit, and that was the moment the beef officially started.